Welcome! So, this is the third skill in the trio of pushback skills for this week, and it's taking a break, which is a skill I'm really passionate about, but not that great at putting into practice. It's taken me years of work to get to the point where I can even bring up the idea of taking a break. Fortunately, the person I live with is really super at this skill, and I really admire that about them, but it's something that I've had to work on really hard. And I think probably that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it. Meg John Barker says your mess is your message, and in this case, I think that's right. So let's start with why we take breaks. I think, certainly for my partner, and I get that too, it actually reduces the duration of the conflict. And that's a really big motivator for a lot of people. So it's super counterintuitive. We think if you take a break, surely it's going to make things longer. Surely the conflict's going to go on forever because you've taken a break from it. But that's actually not accurate. If you take a break at an effective time, it means that you're going to stop the cycle of increasing the amount of adrenaline and cortisone just flowing through your bloodstream, making your heart beat faster, making your muscles tense, making your whole body react. And if you can interrupt that cycle, then you can literally calm down the parts of your brain that feel like this emotion means you're in danger. Because most of the time you're not in danger. Most of the time in healthy, loving relationships, your body is interpreting a conflict as really dangerous. But in fact, that's a feeling. That's an uncomfortable, unpleasant, very difficult to manage feeling, but it's an emotion. And if you can work on reducing the intensity of the emotion, you're much more likely to stop making the conflict worse. You're much more likely to put yourself into a place where you can express clearly what you're feeling and what you need, and where you can hear what the other person has to say too. It really helps you to be better at communicating and better at figuring out what you want to communicate. Because when you're in the midst of a really intense emotion, it's incredibly difficult to talk to other people about what you want, but also hear their perspective. Incredibly difficult. So how do we do it? In romantic relationships, I tend to suggest that you have a conversation outside of conflict to set up the idea of breaks. Because lots of us have a history of breaks being punishment or breaks being a way of telling you you've done something wrong, when actually it's really all about just being more effective in your relationship. So it's super helpful to have that conversation that sort of positions breaks as something that you're doing to try and make things quicker, to try and make things smoother, to try and improve communication between you, and to try and help you manage your emotions. And if you can do that, usually you can figure out with your partner, what does it mean when we want to take a break? And how can we do it in a way that respects everybody's integrity and everybody's buttons? Especially if one of you was someone that got put on the naughty step, or ignored, or withdrawn from, or stonewalled when something difficult happened. That's a really difficult historic family thing, and it can really get in the way of breaks being effective, at least at first. So once you've figured out in advance what you're going to do, it's time to communicate your pause. And this is usually most effective if you say something very brief, like, I need to stop now. I'm going to take 15 minutes to try and calm down. I know this is important and I really want to come back to talking about it, and I'm going to do that in 15 or 20 minutes. And it might not be possible to come back in 15 or 20 minutes, but it's really helpful to put an end time on it. So I'm going to talk to you about it next time. I'm going to talk to you about it by phone in 2 days. If you're parenting, sometimes it's necessary to stop for a longer period because there's so much to do in the world, right? And if you're a commit partner, or if you're someone that doesn't see each other very often, then it might be necessary to put it off until the next time you see each other. Whatever it is, agree a return time. And then Physically remove yourself from the other person if you can. Now, this isn't always possible. If you're driving with someone in a car, maybe you don't want to stop and go your separate ways for 15 minutes. But if you can, it's helpful to be in different rooms, just so that you have the space to really calm down without reactivating yourself whenever you look at the other person. If you are in a car, just maybe put some headphones on and look out the window if you're not the driver. And then when you come back together, it's really important to have a soft restart. And there are a bunch of different ways that you can do this, but I suggest going back to some of the previous skills that we've talked about around pushback. Maybe mutual validation, validating where you see the other person as coming from, but also yourself, or asking some questions about their perspective if you don't really understand it. And that's all. That's what taking a break is about. Obviously, agreeing in advance is most appropriate to really close friendships and usually romantic partnerships. It might not be possible in other types of relationships, like your relationship with your parent or sibling. It can still be possible to take that space away, though. It can help to still say, just need a break, I'm leaving, I'll be back, so that you can take that time to deactivate and de-escalate and reduce the intensity of your distress. And even if you haven't made the agreement with the other person, it can still really help to improve your relationship and to reduce the duration of your conflicts. And that's all.